now.
Good.
Work done.
Good. We need the energy, so that's good.
Good.
Excellent. And hello, Crystal. Good evening. And we also have Premium Coach 1. Who's Premium Coach 1? Ah. That person left again. Okay.
Done.
Anyway, why don't we get started? We have set aside 60 minutes for this get together, and mostly led by Simon, I think. And Simon, you will give us some context and scope for the call in just a moment. I just wanted to say it's amazing to see you all here. Thank you for being here. We're going to talk about building a database about disruptive technologies, specifically for now, about related to education. But I think the scope of the database will go above and beyond just education, which is great. So I'm very happy that we can get started together on this initiative. And it's not the first time actually we talk about something like this. In about a year back, when we started our first Educate for Life sprint, we discussed something very similar, but we decided not to do something about it. But having said that, we did accumulate quite a lot of articles and links and stuff like that may or may not be of relevance to what we talk about today. Let me just briefly show you. It'll just be a 30-second thing. First of all, on the Educate for Life page, there's a resources section, and this is not a fancy database at all. It's a flat, static web page, but with quite a few links to different types of educational technologies or services or something else that somehow relates to educational technologies. I don't know if that can be of any help at any point. Another thing I wanted to point to that we have been building is if we go to our community platform under groups, we have the public school library, which is not a public school library at all. It's just a place where we dump interesting articles. And if you look for topics and then select technology in education, you will find all articles that are related to educational technology. There's quite a lot in there as well. And it's searchable, but it's not structured in any way. And not really what we are here to discuss today. But I just want to show that we obviously get very close to educational technology in everything we do. So with that, Simon is the great initiator of a very exciting project. And I'm just going to hand over to you, Simon, to give us a bit of context. What is it you want to do, and let us know also how we can be of support and help in this journey. So over to you, Simon.
For sure. Thanks a lot, Lars. And thanks for all of your guys who are being here, and that we can talk about the initiative and also maybe benefit from each other and bring things forward in the field of education. Maybe a little bit of context to the entire project. So it's still rather new. I was, in the end of last year, I thought about it would be great to kind of build a database about disruptive technologies, where on the one hand, you accumulate all the relevant things which are happening right now without the hype, like really what is out there at the moment and what can businesses or institutions can actually do with blockchain, with artificial intelligence, with drones and whatever. And to link those possibilities to use cases. So that if I am, as a company or institution, I'm interested in, well, how can I, for example, or how can disruptive technologies, emerging technologies benefit my case? I actually have, on the one hand, the research out there or the articles. On the other hand, I also have the use cases, and then maybe even like a person I can directly contact who can give me more insights or more coaching in that case. So that would be the link then back to the OpenExo platform, or for example, to Educator4Life, if there is experienced person that you can really share the insights and the experiences. And we then found like a small team who were eager to support that initiative. And then we thought like, well, it's rather big to start with this big idea, and we need a starting point. And we all kind of agreed on, well, education is something which is the foundation of society. And it would be great if we started with education and as the first sprint, at the first MVP, and then iterate from there on and make it bigger. So for the conversation today, as you're all related with education or interested in education, and we thought, well, Lars is running this great initiative about education. It would be great if we can actually build something which you couldn't immediately use or benefit of, which would immediately be of value for you, so that we don't just build something which is, well, it's nice to have, it's out there, but where we really see, okay, people are making use of this and we get feedback from this and it's of value for them. So that's how we thought, okay, let's get in contact with you, Lars, and with your community. And now we're really trying to basically brainstorm a little bit or get some input from the people who are interested in those in the educational area. What would you, or what would the best product look like for you guys? Like if you can imagine some kind of database or platform where on the one hand you have the information, what's going on there, what's out there happening. Are you interested in seeing use cases to this, that you can see, okay, those education institutions already implemented, for example, blockchain in that case, and or what would be of most value for you, where you can say, wow, that would make my life easier, or as a coach, as a professor, as a dean, whatever, that what would be of value of you, that we just like, that's basically, that would be the best outcome of the day if we can gather some ideas which would help us to actually build something for you guys. So yeah.
Great. So very exciting. Obviously, I think we all keep researching on both technologies, but also trends and use cases and scientific research and many other aspects in everything we try to do. So I'm very keen, obviously, to give input and suggestions to what could be useful for myself, and I hope everybody on the call will do the same thing.
Yeah. So maybe as a starting off, if it's, I think it's a great question if everybody could give me some ideas, like what are your biggest pain points when it comes to doing something related with emerging technologies in education? What would make it easier? It doesn't need to be like that related with the project yet, but just to get a general understanding, what really is the pain point out there? What is limiting us to actually including or thinking about emerging technologies in the case of education?
Great. Who wanna start?
I'll start by asking a question which will basically show my ignorance about the subject. But for disruptive technologies in education, I personally I'm not even aware of all that's out there. And there's a lot of things out there that are out there and I've never seen or heard about it. It would be great if we could categorize the technologies in terms of what the target customer base is or the target audience is for that technology, so that if you're looking for technologies, for example, that are related only to higher educational institutions, then I can use the database to search for that and find the use cases and find maybe which regions or which areas that they're working in, what kind of partnerships they might be open for. I think that's just a start. I'm sure this could be very useful.
Great input, Jabin. How do you pronounce your name? I don't want to pronounce your
name.
Jabin, sorry.
Yes.
Sorry, Jabin. Like the plan is, or we were thinking it would be great because we thought, for example, if we think about businesses in HR, for example, they might be using blockchain or whatever or AI for their education of their own employees. So this would maybe also be an interesting case for educational institution, right? So we thought it would be great if we first of all categorize, of course, all the things, like if you're interested in education, higher education, what are the use cases? But then also thinking about, well, maybe there is other fields, like in business fields out there, where there are similarities for use cases, so that you can dig deeper into that topic too. But it's a really great input. We thought about, we definitely need to make it clear or available for everybody who is interested in a topic to see what is out there for higher education.
So topics would include not just a type of organization or type of target audience, but also the type of technologies, regions where they've been adopted.
Yeah. So definitely the type of technologies, region where they were adapted. I think in the later phase of the project, definitely. I'm not sure if we're going that detailed already in the beginning for the first MVP, because we really want to focus for the first thing about the most relevant things. And I mean, that's why we're also having the discussion. I'm not sure what are the most relevant things to have at least, and what are nice to have. So that's also something we definitely have to figure out.
So have you figured out what you'd like to start with?
Well, definitely type of technologies, the categorization for which institution or for which type of business, and use cases. But we're still brainstorming and trying to get input from the people who are actually really working in education. I am not working in education. I did my studies, of course, but I'm not actively working in education or running projects with educational institutions. So that's just the big value from you guys, which is coming in. And maybe one more thing about the categorization. We thought if it would make sense to basically break it down to core business processes. That we, for example, can say artificial intelligence can help you in the recruitment process, in the training process, in sales process, in marketing. And those core processes, they are also available in education institutions. So that you basically link it with business processes. You can say, okay, I'm interested in marketing or in supply chain management, in recruiting, in all those business processes, and see, okay, the education process or the employment upskilling process, they're similar with the education processes, for example, for institutions. And maybe there is some similarities there, but that's still not set in stone.
I would add a couple of things.
Hi, Gabriel. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Just one more thing in terms of the categorization of that process as you are talking. I think it's very, very important when we allocate or we identify these type of technologies to exactly when you have those cases, the real case or example cases, just to have like a measure of impact of the case. Because at the end, as everything in every organization, it's very important to show the impact on when after applying that technology or whatever they was. So that's one thing. And the other thing, and I think I'm just like right now thinking out loud, is like, as everybody knows, one of the most difficult parts in education organizations or any other organizations is this immune system that rejects any type of innovation.
Yeah.
So and the education institutions are very traditional, are very outdated in the ways how they think, and the ways how they are organized. So I think I'm trying to think how we can about using this database. It's not just about the technology itself, but how it can be used as a way of like bypassing the immune system and actually getting more traction from an institution. So at the end, it's not just like knowing that a technology exists, but knowing how to present the case just to make it a successful project.
Thanks for the input, Gabriel. Two follow-up questions. Measuring the input, I think that's really important. The question is like, how would you, like, what would be interesting for you there? Is it is it like financial or the ROI of the project then, or what is,
I think
as an educational institution, what makes you say, okay, this was a successful implementation?
It depends on what type of project. If you're thinking about an upskilling project in a company, definitely should be measured in some type of ROI. I don't know, return on investment or productivity, whatever it is, when you are talking on a business environment.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about an education organization, there should be a lot of other impacts in terms of success rate, rankings, whatever it is, how they measure their operation. So it's at the end, each education organization has some type of indicators or KPIs in terms of the cook. Usually, if we are thinking more on the delivery of the educational services, not like on the processes like marketing or the other parts, but more on the quality of their services. So we should link that project to some type of indicator. Otherwise, it's just like something nice, very fancy, but very difficult to sell to other organizations.
Yeah. And if you're like, what would be the key as an educational institution? Would you be more interested in actually using those emerging technologies to improve your core value proposition, which is basically educating students, or which is your main target group? Or is it more like the process behind it to make it more efficient, or make it more productive, or whatever? Like, I think there is two ways how you as an educational institution can see that. For example, you can use AI or facial recognition for the attendance checking, but that does not improve your service as an educational institution, right? It's just like a nice to have and makes the life maybe easier for students, but it's not improving your core value proposition. So what is the main focus do you think of educational institutions?
I think that definitely would be more related to the quality of the service that they are providing, the quality of the education services that they are providing. And then and as always, these type of projects, you at the end you start where you can and not necessarily where you want. So maybe it's easier to start by doing like some type of re-engineering of the back-end processes, like what you said, and then you move into the service by itself. But it depends on each organization. I don't know. I'm not really an expert too, so I'm just thinking out loud. But I think that the focus should be on the service, on the quality of the education that they're delivering.
Yeah. Okay, great. And one follow-up question to the immune system issue. Would it be more like then, like if you, for example, present some methodology how to overcome the immune system, or like if I think about the Excel sprint or like a sprint process, that they can say, well, that's something how you can overcome the immune system? Or would it be more like really focused to the use cases and find out how did those institutions actually manage to start doing something about it?
I think it's more like the second one. I think that starting like showing user cases, successful cases, and putting them really make them available. I think that's a way of helping the organizations and the leaders of these organizations to start thinking in another way. And at the end, I think it's like what Lars and everybody is doing here, like trying to create a community. But as always, the ones who are participating, at least in this type of communities, are the ones that they are already in. Yeah. So the difficult part is how you can get the leaders of organizations that are not really there yet, how you can get these people in to join a community like this one, to start sharing experience and to start seeing what other organizations are doing. So that's the challenge.
Yeah. Great, thanks, Gabriel. Anyone else?
Can I? Yeah, just what's, I guess maybe a comment or clarification or something about the immune system response. I guess the database will provide data and some insights when there's enough data. But I know Lars and Augusto can chime in and say, like, in terms of determining what their immune response would be and dealing with that, I think that's kind of a human problem that comes, may not take us very far in the database. Or you have to go through a sprint or come to some OpenEXO experts to help deal with that. And it's not always possible to know where the immune response will come from. Yeah. And we're always learning new things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely a key point. I definitely agree with you that it's more like a human aspect when it comes to change. And but the question is really how can we go forward and get those people to actually start changing something. I think once they're in the boat, they also see more like the value and they're more likely to actually do something about it. But the key point is to get them interested in a thing and get started with something. And we're also thinking, how can we maybe find some low-hanging fruits which makes them really tangible and where everybody can say, okay, that's a great starting point. It's not a lot of investment from our side, but we can see immediate results. But that's also a question what are those low-hanging fruits for education institutions in general? How can we maybe also as a community or as OpenEXO community help them out to be successful with those low-hanging fruits?
So questions about the back end of the database, like, and maybe you've touched on it already. You're going to create the database. Where will it be? Where will it reside? And like, are you crowdsourcing database entries, or how is it maintained?
So we are definitely running some crawlers and try to get a lot of already existing articles and data entries so that we don't have to do everything manually. And then we will set up a MongoDB database or something very simple. And the idea right now is that we really make an easy platform where it's available for everyone, or that we really share it with communities like OpenExo or EducateforLife, that they can make use of it and they get some value out of it, and maybe also get something back. Like the maintenance of the entire database, the idea is basically that in the end, it's not like a centralized system where I or 3 people are responsible to add new things. But when you as a community or whoever is using the database finds new interesting cases, that they can actually build on the already existing database. We are not 100% sure yet how that will look like at the end. As I said, we're starting building the MVP, and then we will probably learn and iterate from there on. But the big idea is to open sources and to make it available for everyone.
Hi, Nick. Hello, do you hear me?
Hi, Xavi, yeah?
Yes, Javi.
Hello, hello, Lars. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Well, I wanted to say I'm currently going through the EXO Sprint coach cohort, and maybe I'm in week three, which is share. Maybe my mind is very narrow at this point. I just found out the power of surveys to get to know what the pain points of the people are, and you can, if they are well structured, they can reach a lot of people in the sector. You can get so much information about what they would find useful to see in the front end of this database, but you can also reach those people that are working in the educational sector, and in concrete, those people that are working in places where technology has been implemented, and then you can also ask what's their everyday impact of this technology. That would also, if that's shown at the end, if you get a very large number of interviewees, that could help manage the immune system for other institutions to adapt that technology, because they are seeing real cases and what the impact is. You know, I'm just blown out about the response I'm getting with the surveys, and thinking about the structure, how powerful it is.
Yeah. Thanks, Javier. Hi, by the way. Yeah, totally. Like the surveys, we were thinking about first, like tapping into the existing communities like OpenExo and EducateforLife, because that's just like more accessible for us, where we can directly get expert or like input from people who are directly involved with that. But I totally agree that we should consider setting up a proper survey where we gain more data, which is then probably less qualitative driven, but maybe even a little bit more quantitative driven, because if you have to fill out a lot of things, I don't know if everybody is willing to, or if everybody is able to discuss the details that much. But it's of course a very valuable tool which we should use.
Yes, and I'm seeing the response of the people, and they are I try to make a survey a little, I don't know, a little warm for the people, and they found it like super interesting, and they want to know more. So maybe people can come from the to the community from the survey also.
Yeah, great point. That's true.
Could I add
Can
something?
I contribute?
Yeah.
Go
Klaus first, and
Carmen.
then Carmen.
Okay, sorry, Cameron.
No worries.
Hi, Simon, and hi, Lars,
Klaus. How are you
and
doing?
everybody. Gabriel. I agree with what Gabriel said, and also Jamie, that the value of whatever edtech is in the database should be linked to the outcome of using it. Together with Gabriel and some others, we are working with adult education in SMEs, and part of it is with the most difficult people in the SMEs, namely the managers. They are very critical, and they are not willing to join anything which doesn't give them results and immediate results. So, and what is results for them? What can we measure there? The first thing we would measure is whether they join in. The next thing is whether they drop out again or whether they complete the course. Third, whether they implement, and I mean implement immediately what they have learned. So far, we have not used EdTech, that is artificial intelligence and such things. We're thinking in terms of that to create the interest and impact which we are looking for. And as far as we have gathered so far, we should use artificial intelligence and machine learning to help individualize and adapt whatever is the course to the person, the student who is looking at the course, because what we think is relevant and what we have designed as a course is not necessarily what they are looking for. They might want to jump around in the course and some other courses. So we are not very familiar with using this sort of technologies, EdTech technologies, but we would like to know, for instance, is artificial intelligence and machine learning creating the sort of impact which we want to keep our students interested and to create the results in SMEs which we aim at.
So if I understood it correctly, basically that you really show or relate it with outcomes and show, that's the impact you can generate, or that's the impact you can reach if with those disruptive technologies, with those emerging technologies.
Two things at least. One is, do we keep the interest of the student? Because managers and adult people, but especially managers, don't stay with a course if they don't find it interesting and valuable immediately and all the way through.
Yeah.
They will drop out immediately if they think it's boring or irrelevant. So one measurement would be, do they finish the course, or where do they drop out? And the other measurement would be, do they implement what they have learned? And that is what Gabriel is talking about. Does it create value in the business, and immediate value when we're talking about SMEs? They have a very short horizon. And we think that we cannot make courses in the usual traditional way, which will keep the interest of students. We must adapt and individualize the learning experience to do that. And as far as we can see, that is machine learning and artificial intelligence, but we don't know very much about that.
Great. I totally agree that the individualist learning experience is something institutions or educational institutions, but also SMEs or companies for their learning behavior should focus on. I just realized that we have a call next week.
Yes, we have.
Yeah,
we'll talk.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yes.
And thanks for your input.
So are we. Okay.
Carmen, I think you were next.
Okay. I thought Klaus had some very good points because I take a lot of courses myself. And yeah, I do find that sometimes the experience is a little bit too generic. And when you actually want to give feedback, you know, it seems that nobody is really tracking feedback. Somebody gives you a little bit of feedback, and they usually have a forum or a group. And then after that, when you actually want to further pursue that, you actually don't get any more answers because things just go very, very fast, especially when it's probably some continuing education programs and so on. So that's a personal experience. And I actually really feel that, you know, many students, especially when you take these Coursera courses or whatever, you really don't feel, you know, you really don't feel that you have any sort of personalization at all. It's not that people really look for, you know, a good morning in the morning or something, but, you know, when you do have a problem, I don't find that any university or any of these course people really have a system of tracking it. So they don't track it like, you know, you track customer complaints. Yeah. I don't really see that happening. You know, somebody's asking a question, I really don't understand this equation. How do you do that? You know, like, oops, and then you end up in a dark hole. Yeah. But anyways, what I was going to comment earlier is actually, I'm not from education, but I have taken part in some educational institutes, actually schools and universities. And in their technology selection processes. So I was thinking that that might be helpful to you.
Yeah, definitely.
See, what I found is that, well, obviously, to begin with, when you're part of a bigger university and you're a school, schools have their needs and the bigger university has the bigger university's infrastructure. So there always seems to be quite a you know, like who's in charge there, who's making the decisions and so on. So if it comes from the top, then, you know, everybody will have to follow, but, you know, they don't want to do that. If it comes from the school itself, then there's always this integration and whether you can actually get approval and who will go and defend it, who's going to be accountable and who has the authority for it. So that's always a bit of a fight because this is actually when you're trying to promote this, you really have to think from a B2B perspective because this is not a B2C problem. You're tackling a B2B problem. So you've got to take a B2B approach to it in terms of overcoming the challenges, overcoming the hurdles, the obstacles that you might be presented with. What I've also found, and there was an earlier comment about academics or institutions being very conservative, and that is very true. I think on top of, you know, giving them, you know, ROI numbers, return on educational investments and all of that, they want to talk to somebody. Yeah. They want a real reference. They want the use case. They want really to be able to say, okay, well, whoever at that Ivy League university, or actually, if you're actually trying to market to a bigger cohort of like maybe even non-Ivy League, you probably want to be able to understand, you know, what kind of universities are more close to what kind of universities or institutions are closer to other institutions, so that they actually have that familiarity of saying like, oh, okay, I can get a reference from, you know, a body that actually is very similar to me, and therefore I get extra assurance that it's going to work for me. I also, you know, would get some really reliable input rather than what the technology provider themselves actually will always say, because that always will be a marketing, you know, spiel versus the real experience, and they always want to do that. So if, you know, if that comes hand in hand in terms of your database of who they can talk to, who is willing to actually talk about these things, then I think that is, you know, a good foot, you know, through the door for people to start considering these things. Another area that I have found, but maybe, you know, I think maybe in Western countries, maybe this is already well managed, but at least in Asia, what I find is that our universities or our institutions actually have a tough time keeping track of research. It seems that a lot of the research is where, okay, they can track the grants are given, but they don't actually they don't have a lot of clarity, you know, from the administrative side of things, you know, to exactly what's happening with research, where the research is going, because I think a lot of that is very, very opaque.
Yeah.
So that's my 2 cents on what you were talking about.
Thanks, Carmen. Maybe one follow-up question, because you said in the beginning the learning experience is not personalized or customized. I totally agree with you also there, because like I already did a bunch of MOCs too, and it's just sometimes a pain to actually follow up. My question would be there, how, like, because if you do that with machine learning or artificial intelligence, what would actually make you happy? Is it more like the problem solving, if you're getting stuck with some material or problem which you cannot solve? Or is it more the feeling that you're taken care of, and that there are people, or that the system is taking care of you and is guiding you through the process?
I think it's more the first. I come from customer experience, so I work with a lot of CRM systems. So if a customer calls you with a complaint, or a customer encounters, a problem on your website, immediately you actually should know about it. It should you should raise a ticket.
Yeah.
So your website, if it's connected with your Salesforce, you raise a ticket. There's an elevation process. It may actually go through a few rounds of machines, and then finally, if it still doesn't get resolved, somebody should actually be coming in, looking in, and actually addressing it.
Yeah.
So I do find that currently there are lots of courses out there, but you're actually not getting this kind of treatment.
Yeah. I think, like, if we now go back to how traditional schools or universities are doing it, there is like the professor, the personal person you can talk to, and you can help you out. And basically, the big problem we have to solve is that the same is happening online, right? Like, that's basically the idea, that the people online have some kind of artificial person there who is giving the same advice, the same input as a real professor would do.
Yeah, I think, you can think about chatbots, for example. If you got stuck, a student got stuck somewhere, there should be some sort of a chatbot, and that definitely is AI. And then the next step is, if you still are not happy with the chatbot, you might actually get to a live chat situation. And then I don't know whether it actually finally gets to a teaching assistant. If you think about the traditional way that people handle it, and then if you're still not happy with the teaching assistant, you march into the professor's office during his office hours.
Yeah. Okay.
If I may jump into the conversation. 4 years ago, I took a sabbatical and I enrolled myself in university, studied physics as a second degree. Now, on one hand, the university is pretty much the same as 30 years ago, when I got my first degree. On the other hand, though, the University of Milan did try an interesting experiment, that is to have an online community of students that can help each other. And along the way, you also rate one another, okay? They are not giving you official credits yet, but the idea is that as I incentivize this peer-to-peer support, which is not the same as the professor. However, given the limited time of the professors, sometimes you get a better support from your peers. Maybe even from older students. It doesn't have to be in the same classroom as yours. And I found it very interesting. Frankly, I'm sorry, but I don't have any metrics because I was like a student myself. So I don't know how the experiment is going, but I found it interesting.
Yeah, Augusto.
They're pretty much saying, do collaborate, do copy from one another. It is okay. We even incentivize that. That's the kind of a wild idea, and it's not about technology really, because the platform was very basic.
Great point, Augusto. Maybe I can share a story there from myself too. Last year I did the course CSI 50 from Harvard. It's like an introduction in computer science. And they have on Reddit a community of, I think 50,000 people who already did the course. And if you have any problem, and it's like, I mean, I had a lot of problems because I have no programming background, and starting with C programming was just like, I have no idea what I'm doing. But then I could basically go back to the Reddit platform, and I could ask, okay, I'm stuck at problem number 3, and I have a problem here with this line of code, and could anybody give me some hints how to solve that? And that was very quick on the one hand, because there was this vast amount of experienced participants already, and it felt very personalized. The only problem which I saw there is, how do you prevent from actually sharing solutions immediately?
They don't. In my case, they don't. They actually say do it. I mean, they take the risk. Beware, this is a traditional university, so you still have to take the test. The official one, you gotta go there physically, and you have an oral examination with the professor. So, and something else they're doing, they're trying to do also that you know, like thumbs up or whatever, stars. So you get rated the more helpful you are. Like I said before, they're not, at least when I was there, they were not turning this into an official credit. But probably some limitations due to the law. But still, they were trying to say, you know, we want you guys to collaborate, and we recognize the value of that.
Yeah.
You know.
Great. Thanks, Augusto.
We intend to do the same, to create a community of SME people, because they really have a need to talk to each other. Many SMEs don't have the opportunity to do that, but they will rather talk to people like themselves than to anybody else. So a community and peer-to-peer discussions would be very helpful. I wanted to make another point. I think if you look at the business schools, I think they are more, they tend more to measure the outcome of what they're doing. I've been at INSEAD myself, and is still in the INSEAD community, and they measure their success in various ways. For instance, what is the salary the students get when they leave? And another one, what is the rating they get? You know, there is various rating systems for business schools. And also, I think that they will eventually also start to measure the outcome of online courses they offer now, because slowly but surely they are moving their business to online instead of students physical. So I think they are more observant in terms of what is the outcome, what is the efficiency of what we're doing. Surely you can find out what sort of measurements they make. I can help. I have a lot of contact at INSEAD, for instance. They are moving into online, as you know.
Yeah, thanks, Klaus. I think that's something we already touched in the beginning, outcome oriented, and then also finding really measures how, for example, what is relevant for the universities and related to that. We have 10 more minutes left, I think, then the hour is over. Anybody else who has some input?
I guess I'll share my challenges over here. I'm heavily involved in the corporate training in Malaysia. So technically my clients will be those MNC and also SME. I'm involved in IT solution training and also soft skill training. So let's talk about the IT training. So we worked closely together with Microsoft as a principal, Oracle's, Red Hat, and many other like Cisco and VMware. So by default, they offer a very standard course outline to the public. So if you want to learn how to use their software or how to how to develop a software or how the infrastructure work, you have to go through the program. Okay, so it is like a very fundamentals of knowledge for the IT people. But as you realize, there are a lot of new tech trends and company coming up, new open source program, new open source SaaS platform. So you can see it's like mushrooming from day to day. So people in the company, it's very hard for them to catch up on the new things in the market. And frequently they ask for customization. How can I integrate that into my company? I don't want them to study. The standard knowledge and education is important, but I want to know how can I integrate into my environment. So different individual, different participants, they have a different concern, different scenario for them to work on. So it becomes very, very complex how to cater their needs over here. So like what you guys have mentioned, it's very personalized and individual. So every single company, they have a different condition and also environment. So how can the knowledge implement and also be relevant to them? So that's for the IT side. I think AI is part of the solution. It's very, very high level. If you look at the algorithm, maybe like AR plus VR kind of thing, you learn whatever question that the participant asks, then slowly through the neural network machine AI, you become very comprehensive, like a super guru to know everything. But you also take time to develop a very comprehensive AI. So another possibility we can refer to like Netflix. Netflix know what we like to watch, which part of the movie we stop the most, we rewatch the session the most. In training also the same. If we can have a certain AI camera installed in the classroom, if the cognitive services available, for example, maybe from Microsoft, we can tell which chapter, which syllabus, which area people feel confused, people feel happy, people feel sad. So that kind of information can re-look into the content and the content curation, whether this content is relevant or not. Is it too complex for the participant to learn in a short period of time, or is it too easy for them? So all this information can help us to develop a better, more relevant and more individual program for all people. And come back to soft skill, the articles that you guys have shared from Walmart. So the customer service, they have different scenario for them to simulate in a Black Friday, in a Thanksgiving, in a different, a very complex and difficult situation. How can the customer service go resolve the problem? So together with the Oculus devices, AR and VR together, they know how they can do the exercise practice and simulate the condition until they are perfect. But how can we bring down the cost and also to standardize and make it available to all the corporate environment over here? That's another question that we can ask ourselves. But of course, if you wish to have the lowest hanging fruit, community is the easiest thing and very strong in power. Look at the Stack Overflow, look at the Reddit. If you have any question, people will come and help you. So that's what I see. And those are the challenges that we are facing every day in my country here. So yeah.
Thanks, Dylan. Great input. I think that some community, I really love the idea. Also, like we don't have to solve all the solutions with technology, right? And community is just like a way where we can tap into the experience of everybody or the knowledge of everybody. And if the community is big enough, we actually can share our insights, our input, which is probably valued always more than something which an AI gives you. And that's definitely a great way. We will see how we can implement something like this in our project, definitely. But yeah, great insights. Anybody else? We have 4 more minutes left. Otherwise, I would say we wrap it up. What about you, Lars?
I think definitely we've been touching on many important areas to consider in the creation of a database like this. I think it's important to probably categorize also the different types of educational institutions. Now, in this call, the swim lane we defined as educational institutions. And even within that swim lane, I think different types of institutions have different desired outcomes. A private business school would look at different outcomes from a publicly funded primary school, elementary school, which is very operational, which they need to deliver education to their students. That's what they do. You know, what is there a point in introducing disruptive technologies that have not showed any mature positive impact? It's not documented really yet. It's a question, right? If you look at the private business schools, for example, and I've been having the pleasure of working with several of those, and they're being disrupted. They understand they have to find new business models. They need to go online. They need to get more personalized, create new types of offerings, and other ways of giving credits and so on. So they are maybe more pushed into searching for new business models and new ways forward. Maybe they are more likely to look at more disruptive technology. So I think we need to consider this when we categorize technologies and solutions in a database. That's just one thing. And also we will have different other swim lanes, in my opinion, in addition to educational institutions, but education is much more. And Klaus and Gabriel represents the SME space, which is a very important one. We have many others as well to consider. I personally stand for disrupting education and actually creating a world where you don't need a school anymore, but you can go through life getting credits from peer reviews, similar to what Augusto has been talking about. But I just wanted also to quickly touch on the back end of things, because that's going to be very important for the implementation of what we're talking about. And just inspired again by the Navitas Ventures website. We refer to that often. Thank you very much for posting that link. Since Jerry is not on the call, but he's one of our amazing friends of the community and advisor and mentor. But Jerry's Brain, we considered that platform a year ago to build something more visual. And Jerry's Brain obviously is Jerry's brain, is not anybody else's brain, but from this set of principles could be interesting to explore. But the technology was not ready, at least a year ago, to collaborate on a mind map like this. But the beauty of this approach is that you can connect nodes in the database, right? So when you search for something here, you can click your way through and find out educational software. What does Jerry's Brain have on that? And here's what he has on that. So if we can collaborate on something like that, that could be pretty powerful. I just wanted to also touch on AI. I think we should be bold enough to apply some machine learning on this as well. And this is golden.com. It's one of my personal favorites. It's an intelligent knowledge base on pretty much anything. And there's a number of platforms like this we could leverage. So it's not just what we put in, but what we plus an AI can put into the database and curate and manage. That might help us as well to create something exponential, something open, something of value to a lot of different partners and collaborators and students and anybody else.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Lars. One question: could you're recording the video, right?
Yep.
Could you share the video with me at the end, and
of course,
maybe also the links?
Of course.
One last question for you, maybe personally. If you would be in the position to go to a company and say, okay, develop something like this for me, what would, for the educators of life, organization would be of most relevant to you personally?
We have some awesome AI developers, certainly in the community. So I would be happy to announce this collaboration opportunity and see who's interested in being part of that. So let's explore that, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Then thanks a lot for all your great participation. I think we have a lot to go on and to further think about it. Let's stay in touch, Lars. I
Yes.
would be really happy if you send me the video. And Klaus, I will talk to you next week, I think, with my colleagues. And yeah, maybe we can. I can join. I can keep you updated about the project, and we can have some further sessions on this if that's something you would be interested in.
Yeah, right.
Keep it going on the community. I'll post this recording a little bit later today in the community platform, so you can all access it right there.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you, Lars. Thank you all for.
Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Lars.
Bye.
Bye.
Enjoy the day.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.